Okay, guys, I want to talk about the late 80s and early 90s, or just 1990, old WWF pay-per-views. All right, let's get right down to it because I don't have a lot of time. Royal Rumble 1988. Let's start with the Royal Rumbles. 1988 was a televised event for the Royal Rumble. I guess this is kind of a testing the waters situation to see if the Royal Rumble could be successful on pay-per-view. And the match wasn't anything special. The actual Royal Rumble match was not the main event. Hacksaw Jim Duggan won it. It was maybe 40 minutes. It wasn't that long. Kind of anticlimactic. Did not really mean much in retrospect. So I'm not a big fan of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, so I was not really feeling the winner of this match. But I don't know. It was okay. I guess it was pretty successful as far as the ratings goes because they decided to add it to a pay-per-view the next year. But the first Royal Rumble was basically about the Hogan to Andre contract signing for Saturday night's main event. And then you had Rick Rude and Steamboat. They had a pretty good opening match. Royal Rumble 1989, they had a pose down with Rick Rude and Ultimate Warrior, which I really didn't care for it. But the actual Royal Rumble was good storyline progression to set up the Hogan Macho Man Randy Savage feud going into WrestleMania. I think Hogan eliminated Savage. But the winner of this match is kind of quizzical to me. You had Big John Studd actually won the match, which is kind of weird because he wasn't even at WrestleMania 5. So really don't know what the point of him going over was. I guess they just wanted to show that if you're in the right place at the right time, you can win the Royal Rumble because he was one of the last guys that came out. And he was a pretty big dude, but I'm not a big fan of Big John Studd, but he won the Royal Rumble in 1989. All right, so let's move on to Royal Rumble 1990. This was pretty good. It was by far the best Royal Rumble up to that point. The $1 Million Man put on a good showing. The Hogan Warrior confrontation in the Rumble got a great reaction, and Hogan was actually the WWF champion at the time, and he actually won the Royal Rumble, eliminated Mr. Perfect, threw him over the top turnbuckle to win the Royal Rumble. So it was good. It was a good match to set up the WrestleMania 6 match. So let's talk about WrestleManias now. WrestleMania 1, most of you guys know it was just kind of a show to bring in celebrities and try to get wrestling more of a mainstream kind of appeal to it, I guess. They brought in Muhammad Ali, they brought in Liberace, a whole bunch of celebrities for this show. I thought the main event was pretty fun. I wouldn't say it was one of the worst WrestleManias, but probably the worst, probably in the top 10 worst WrestleMania, but not like one of the top 3. So WrestleMania 2, I would say probably definitely in the top 3 worst WrestleManias, but it was still pretty good for its time. I wouldn't say it was a disaster. They did a show in Long Island, and they did one in Chicago, and then they did one in Los Angeles. So that was pretty good. I thought Piper was the MVP of this WrestleMania. Just all the shit that he did in the ring with Mr. T, I thought was gold. I just thought his reactions to everything and his promos were awesome. I thought Hogan and Bundy was a pretty good cage match for the time. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was okay. So WrestleMania 3, I would say, is probably the definitive WrestleMania. I think this WrestleMania is what, the first great WrestleMania, pretty much the measuring stick to all WrestleManias was WrestleMania 3. Just a lot of fun matches. Obviously remember this for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man Randy Savage. They stole the show. They put on a great back and forth match. Just excellent stuff. I would say that's like a 5-star match for that time. So, and then we had Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant in the main event. It was a nice spectacle of a match. It's not a technical classic. It's not something that I would necessarily go back and watch today if I wasn't watching the full show in its entirety. But it was a pretty fun moment to see Hogan slam Andre the Giant. Next up we have WrestleMania 4. WrestleMania 4 took place at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I thought this WrestleMania was pretty bad. You could argue that this is the worst WrestleMania of all time. I would say that, but I think the moment at the end with Macho Man winning the belt from Ted DiBiase, winning the vacant title from by beating Ted DiBiase with Hogan's help, the Mega Powers formed. And then you had, Elizabeth was involved with, seeing Elizabeth with the championship hoisted over Macho Man's head was a great moment. So I can't call it the worst WrestleMania of all time because it provided a great WrestleMania moment. But, the crowd was terrible. A lot of corporate guys that worked for Trump were at ringside. And just, they had to really work hard to get a great reaction out of the crowd. The tournament did not go over that well. Just a lot of dull matches. So WrestleMania 4, it kind of gets a thumbs up. All right, WrestleMania 5, kind of had the same problem as WrestleMania 4. They were in Trump Plaza again. I don't know why they came back there, but whatever. This WrestleMania was pretty dull. A lot of average matches. I thought Warrior and Rick Rude was very disappointing. However, I think the whole Mega Powers exploding storyline was awesome. I thought Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage put on a great main event. One of Hogan's best matches. And give Hogan credit. I think Hogan had a lot of passion back then. He was kind of like a god back then. I would go as far as to say that. Just great promos, and I think he was pretty underrated as far as his in-ring work. I think him and Savage put on a great match. Probably 3.5 stars. Pretty solid match, pretty solid main event. I think that match saved WrestleMania 5. You're never going to hear anyone say WrestleMania 5 supports WrestleMania of all time. It could have been, but I think Hogan and Savage definitely saved the show big time. WrestleMania 6, you had Hogan and Warrior in the main event. WrestleMania 6's undercard was, a lot of quick matches, a lot of matches on the show, but nothing was really memorable except Hogan and Warrior. But I know a lot of kids on here don't really appreciate Hogan versus Warrior, and it's one of those things where you need to have been a kid at the time, or you had to have been a fan at the time to really appreciate it. It's the two biggest forces in the business. Meeting each other. When you're a kid, everyone's favorite wrestlers as kids, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. So this was just a dream match. It had great drama, great intensity, great crowd. Finally Hulk Hogan dropped the title to the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior, the first guy I think to beat Hulk Hogan clean. So Ultimate Warrior is very, very, very proud of this moment. It's just excellent, excellent moment, excellent match. I'll give it 4 stars. Just great stuff. I thought Ultimate Warrior should have a longer title reign, by the way. I think they took it away from him way too quick, because he was the most over guy in 1990 and 1991. But, somehow, I guess Hogan must have politicked his way out of it, or whatever. I'm not sure what happened. But, all right, so let's move on to SummerSlams now. The SummerSlams were the early 80s, or the late 80s SummerSlams were kind of mediocre. I wouldn't say they were the best pay-per-views. SummerSlam 88 was okay. I wouldn't say it was great. You have Ultimate Warrior beating Honky Tonk Man in like 20 seconds for the IC title. I'm a big Ultimate Warrior fan, so I love this. So pretty probably the best squash match ever right there because of the crowd. Then you had the main event was the Mega Powers, Hogan and Savage going up against $1 Million Man and Andre the Giant. Just a fun match, fun main event. Everyone went home happy. The title wasn't defended enough back then on pay-per-view, though. I think SummerSlam and WrestleMania, those were the pay-per-views they should have had their championship matches at. So let's move on to SummerSlam 1989, actually. SummerSlam 1989. This was pretty good, a lot better than 88. You had the Hart Foundation and the Brain Busters in the opening match, one of the best SummerSlam matches ever, in my opinion. And then we had, the Rockers and the Rougeau brothers had a 6-man tag match with the Model and Tito Santana. That was really, really good as well. Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude had a match that was 10 times better than the WrestleMania match. Great stuff. Ultimate Warrior won the Intercontinental title back from Rick Rude. And then the main event, you had Hogan's team with Brutus Barber Beefcake going up against Zeus and Macho Man. This is a good match. It was a nice promotion for the No Holds Barred movie, which Hogan and Zeus starred in. So, it was not great, but it was okay. SummerSlam 1990, I would say, was great for SummerSlam. This is one of the best SummerSlams ever, in my opinion. You had so many great matches here. The main event was a steel cage match between Warrior and Rick Rude. That was a feud that had been going on for years, and this is what finally finished it. Hogan and Earthquake was a lot better than expected. Just really, really good stuff for what it was. Hart Foundation and Demolition I thought was awesome. 2 out of 3 falls. Probably like a 3.5 star match. And then you have Mr. Perfect and Human Tornado for the Intercontinental title. I thought it was short, sweet, great stuff. Mr. Perfect lost the belt to Kerry Von Erich, the Human Tornado. The Texas Tornado. I'm sorry. Okay, next up we have Survivor Series. Now, I would say this. Survivor Series, these are the pay-per-views you guys need to see. I would say by far the Survivor Series pay-per-views were the best pay-per-views of the late 80s and the best pay-per-view of 1990. I would say Survivor Series 1990 is the Survivor Series to check out, but I'll explain why in a second. The Survivor Series of the 80s, you had Andre's team versus Hogan's team from 87, which was great. You had Honky Tonk Man versus Savage's team from 87, which was a great opening match. The main event from Survivor Series 88 was very, very dramatic with Hogan and Savage were on the same team, and Miss Elizabeth had to uncuff Hogan. Just a very dramatic match right there. Then went up against Bobby Heenan and Slick and all those guys. Survivor Series '89 was okay. You had Ultimate Warriors versus the Heenan family in the main event. But like I said, the Survivor Series was just a lot better back then. I think the reason is, there was more of a connection with the fans. Um, a lot of these guys had great gimmicks. Everyone was different out there. Nowadays, everyone's trying to look like Randy Orton, and it's just not the same. They cut great promos before the matches. Each of these teams had names. All the teams had names that the fans could identify with, like the Ultimate Warriors, the Heenan family, the Roddy's Rowdies, or Rude's Rude. It's a whole bunch of different names for all these teams. And I think that added a lot to the importance of these matches. So, but yeah, Survivor Series 1990. This is Survivor Series that everyone needs to check out. There's not a four-star match on the show, but from top to bottom, this is a really, really fun show. Obviously, yeah, you had The Undertaker, who made his debut. Ted DiBiase called him out and put him on his team. But the great thing about this was, if you were the sole survivor of your team, then you advanced to the main event.